Stop it. You gotta love a Hallmark Channel original movie. It's everyone's favorite guilty pleasure, including mine. So today, sit back. I'm going to be reviewing their latest offering, Love Under the Olive Tree. And I've got my knitting. Let's go ahead and get into it. So to get started, let's get with a little synopsis of the movie. Two men start an olive farm to sell olive oil. I don't know, are they called farms? Are they orchards? I don't know. You know, you have grapes, you have vineyards, and then it's a winery, so it's an oilery. I don't even know what you call them. But anyways, they start a farm, an orchard with olives, and then they have some big falling out. They split their farms, and now it's a couple generations later, and their grandchildren are adults. And on the one farm, I did not write down the names of these farms, so I cannot use them as reference because I couldn't be bothered. But anyways, the granddaughter of one of them, she has been working on her farm since she was a kid. She's ready to take over the reins. Her grandfather wants to retire. It's very exciting. She's got all these big plans to expand upon the farm, including an additional tasting room with some construction. She's got it all approved, ready to go. When the grandson of the other owner on the adjacent farm, he is a big lawyer in some city, Southern California. It's like LA or San Francisco. I think it was San Francisco. So his mother tricks him to coming home by pretending his grandfather's like really sick, but it turns out he's fine. So he comes home, and the grandson comes home, and he happens to be looking through his papers while during his visit, and he happens to notice he finds a map that draws the property lines, and it turns out that the construction that Nicole is going to build happens to go over onto their land based on this map that his name's Jake found. So Jake actually goes directly to the court. He files an injunction. That's what he did. So he files an injunction with the court. So the two families go before the court, and basically the judge is like, yeah, I mean, you're going to need a land surveyor and all this kind of stuff to determine this. She's like, that's going to take weeks. And they're like, well, we don't have weeks. She's like, fine. There's a big olive oil tasting competition coming up next week. Whoever wins the oil competition gets to keep the land. Real attention to detail of the law, you can tell. So, of course, the one I keep saying winery, oilery or whatever. The oil farm has always been winning. Jake's family's oil farm has always won the contest for the past 3 years in a row. But Nicole is determined to win it this year. So over the course of the next week and a half or so, or 2 weeks, there's all these, it's fall, so this fall fest, there's all these different things going on, and they keep running into each other, either on the property line, or, you know, apple picking contest, or some sort of tractor racing contests, or hay maze contests. So they're constantly running into each other. And then over time, of course, you know, they mend fences. It turns out that they'd known each other their whole lives, but Nicole had misheard him say something when they were teenagers, and she thought he was talking about her, so she stopped talking to him, and he couldn't figure out what he'd done wrong. So they managed, that all comes out, and they mend the fences, and they're starting to get along. There's a little nighttime festival where there's a dance, so they dance, sparks are flying, romance is a kindling. Then, and of course, right, 20 minutes before the movie's supposed to end, they manufacture some big conflict, because that's how all Hallmark movies go. There's always a conflict about 20 minutes before the movie's supposed to end. It's usually very obvious and ridiculous, and which is very true in this case. Jake finds another old map, actually, that postdates the other one and shows that Nicole's family does in fact own that piece of land. So he takes it to the court, shows it, they're like, oh yeah, okay, so it is their land, go ahead, we'll file it, everything's good. But she, of course, thinks she mishears him, thinks something else is going on, just like teenagers all over again. So now she's mad at him. And then it's the big day of the oil tasting contest, and he doesn't tell her because he wants her to win fair and square, I guess, the oil tasting contest. And all this time, we've been learning about olive oils and making olive oils, and she's been tasting batch after batch, and none of them was quite right. And he's been learning his family business because, he was a big city lawyer, and now he's on the olive oil farm. So he presents his oil, and she, at the last second, what are you doing, Will? Go away. So then she, at the last second, finds the missing ingredient. We don't know what that is. Just literally, suddenly there's like a light bulb above her head kind of moment, and we're at the contest, and she runs in at the very last second with a new bottle of oil, even though everyone already has the oil in front of them. We're like, okay, I guess she found the missing ingredient. We don't know what that is, or what it was, or what triggered that realization, but she solved it, and of course she wins the contest, and everyone's, ooh, so the next day she goes to the court to be like, hey, we won the contest, can I have the land officially in my name? And the judge is like, oh, I already solved it, I already fixed it, because Jake brought me the later map, and it turns out it was yours all along, it's already been finalized, you're all good. And she's like, oh my god, I totally misheard Jake, I'm gonna find him. So she goes racing, looking for him everywhere. She finds him right on the property line, and then they have their big magical moment, kiss, happily ever after, the end. That's the movie pretty much. Alright, so the things I usually touch on when I review Hallmark movies is, first of all, the setting. So it obviously takes place during like a fall festival. It's autumn, all the crops are in, there's a big harvest festival, all the different, we got the hay maze, hay rides, apple picking. What I can't figure out is, why are they airing this movie now? I don't know where everyone else lives, but where I am, it's June. It's summertime. Normally Hallmark saves these kind of movies for fall, like, Autumn Harvest, Fall Fest, whatever name they come up with for their new movies that they premiere during that time period. I can't figure out why they're airing it now. It's June. Usually June is June weddings or summer weddings, or the whole fall theme. Is it because was it always scheduled to air now? Or did they have to sub it in for another movie that wasn't ready? Or I don't know, because of COVID, if somehow they're behind on shooting certain movies and this one was ready to go, so they just shoved it in. I don't know what the deal is with this, why there's a fall movie in June. It just was very odd. I mean, other than that, the setting is totally standard. I don't know anything about olives or olive oil making, but I do feel like I know a lot more now, having watched this movie. First of all, so the trees have the olives on them, they're ripe olives, but they were like mixed. There was like black olives and green olives, and they were collecting them all at once into buckets and mashing them all together. And like I said, I don't know anything about olives. I guess I thought like black olives and green olives were different varieties of olives. So like you would have a tree that had green olives and a tree that had black olives. And if you had a tree with mixed, it's because the black ones weren't ripe yet, so they were still green. I guess, is that not true? I don't know if this was just filming inaccuracy, or if really I don't know anything about olives, which is, I don't know anything about olives. So that's very likely that that's how olives look like on trees, and I just didn't know. It was also interesting to see how they're constantly tasting olive oil. I have never really thought about the taste of olive oil so much. Obviously, I know what olive oil tastes like. I like different varieties of olive oil, like a robust olive oil. I went to an Italian restaurant in Philly where it's like really authentic Italian, and they bring in their olive oil directly from Italy. The owner, he flies over there to taste the different batches and bring back the best. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was dipping my bread in that oil, and I was like, why is this olive oil better than any other dipping olive oil I have ever tried in my life? It was fantastic. So clearly there are better olive oils, and there's different tastes to olive oil. I just never really thought about it. I do know, you have extra virgin olive oil, and I usually get the one with the robust flavor, so it's a very strong olivey flavor. Olivey, olively, strong olive flavor. And sometimes I don't buy the processed stuff. I even like to get that unfiltered, so it's got like little bits of fiber from the olive in it. Whole foods. Let's keep it as good and as healthy as possible. But after this whole thing where they just kept tasting olive oils and talking about the citrus notes and the bitterness and all this kind of stuff, I was like, gee, I wonder what it does to just eat olive oil. So I actually did. I went into my kitchen and I put just like a little bit of olive oil on a spoon, because I had two flavors. I have two varieties of olive oil. I had, like I said, the extra virgin robust flavor olive oil. So I tried that, and it's true, it does have a very bitter aftertaste, which I guess I've never really noticed before, because usually I'm having it with other things that sort of neutralize that. But the other oil I had was an extra virgin truffle oil, which don't even get me started on truffle oil. I mean, really all it is extra virgin olive oil, to which they add a little bit of artificial truffle flavoring, and then charge 3 times as much for. I mean, it's a total scam, but I do like that flavor of the truffle. I mean, it's not even real truffle, it's fake truffle. But that's a whole other video. So I tried that one well, and it also, much milder flavor, not as bitter on the end, because that one obviously is a more neutral oil, because it's meant to carry the truffle flavor. But yeah, I was like, oh, this whole new world of olives that I never even considered before. There is actually a company in Vermont, where was it? In Burlington, Saratoga Oil Company. And I have gotten several oils from them and vinegars. And they have a whole big tasting room, so you can go around with little bits of your little cubes of bread and dipping it in all the different oils. But it's not like different varieties of olive oil, it's just like flavor oils. So they're all olive oil, and then to which they add, actually they're not olive oil, that's where I got apricot kernel oil. No. Butternut squash seed oil, which was delicious, has a very high smoking temperature, so it's great. You can cook with it at high temperatures, but it was delicious, a great nutty toasted flavor. It was excellent. Yeah, butternut squash seed oil. If you can ever get your hands on it, highly recommend it. But that was a great one because you can try all the different oils, but they're different, completely different oils. It's not like here's all these different varieties of extra virgin olive oil that you can try. So it's not like you really can try the same oil, the different batches. So now we're going to get into next is the main character. So the two main love interests, Nicole and Jake. The whole movie, it's okay. It's a Hallmark Channel movie, so the acting, it's what you would expect for this sort of movie. Not great, but not bad. There was no real meet cute, because technically these characters had known each other as kids. So when they ran into each other 15 years later, it was like at the diner where they were each picking up like their coffee for the morning. It was kind of like, oh hey, Nicole, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you for ages. Who are you? Oh, right, Jake. I'm sorry. Hey, it's been a while. It's really totally normal, actually. Well, I mean, not entirely normal. It was, a little cliche dialogue, but it goes down pretty much how it would if you were a real person seeing someone you haven't seen in ages. I know, I ran into a high school friend a few months ago who I hadn't seen in, probably 15 years, and I was like, hey, yeah. So it's that sort of awkwardness too, of someone you haven't seen in a while. What have you been up to? Cool. Great. Have a good life. Good to see you. Moving on. So it's a really quick exchange, not a meet cute per se. But overall, the two characters together throughout obviously they keep running into each other, establishing that rapport. I'm gonna say they had like no chemistry. It was, I couldn't see them getting together. And even as the movie went on and they started to get better acquainted with each other, put aside the past grievances, and actually I thought the back and forth between them was really good. They were constantly sort of jibing each other, throwing these jibes. Stop it. Throwing these barbs at each other, but they weren't constantly sort of making fun of each other, poking each other's buttons, but in a very friendly sort of way. So none of the jibes were really sharp. Like, I think when it's the kind of way you do a back and forth with a friend versus an enemy. So none of the things that they threw at each other was really meant to hurt. It was kind of like, yeah, push each other's buttons. And at one point I even thought Jake was kind of a jerk because he just kept sort of needling her, and then I realized, oh no, he's just he's winding her up. Because the rest of the time, because then he's very nice and caring and generous with her. And they start to sort of gel better, and I still didn't feel really the chemistry, but what I felt was more of sort of siblings. So yeah, they're throwing the insults. They were very competitive throughout. Always racing. Who can be first? Who can do this better? This constant sort of rivalry going on that really just felt like brother and sister. So at the end, when they're like, "Oh, we're in love and we're kissing," I'm just kind of like, really? Is that what this is? Oh, I forgot to add in my summary that, yeah, so of course she gets the farm and Jake's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to completely quit my job where I'm about to make partner at my law firm to come work on my grandfather's farm." So happily ever after right there. It just, when they kissed, I was just kind of like, ugh, no, no. You definitely guys fit together, but not that kind of relationship. But moving on to the secondary supporting characters, these stories, I'm going to be honest, sometimes they're a little ridiculous in Hallmark movies, but in this one, I loved them. Loved them. I loved the supporting characters so much that I would have preferred to have two separate movies. Jake and Nicole could have been sort of the background characters, and then we had two movies. First with the grandfathers. So the grandfathers, the ones who had the feud that split up the farm, the way they portrayed this feud was fascinating. I loved it because what they did is they had the grandfathers each telling their story to their families over like the dinner table, but they jumped between each story. So you can hear the slight differences in the story of the different points of view and sort of where the miscommunication happened and why they fell apart. And it was excellent because they're both very sympathetic, and at the end you're like, oh, that's a very reasonable misunderstanding. Are both kind of like, yeah, but it was years ago. We really should bury the hatchet. We're not really rivals anymore, other than the little olive oil tasting competition each year. That's really where it ends, and it's just for fun. Otherwise, it's just kind of like they're friendly. They have no interest in really extending this feud, but they're children. So not the grandchildren. The grandchildren are like, yeah, I think this is enough. But their children are like really digging into it. Like, no, oh no, he did you dirty. You can't possibly reconcile, which is interesting. I'm like, this is how feuds start. So even though the grandfathers, that's like they're let bygones be bygones. You got this next generation that's like, we're going to fuel the fire. We're going to really dig in and extend this, which was like, why? Clearly your father doesn't care about it anymore, but yeah, like they really took it to heart, which was interesting. But in the end, the grandfathers do end up reconciling, and I'm sure maybe they combine their farms. There was some dialogue at the end with the kiss and everything. I wasn't paying that close attention. They might have made plans that Jake and Nicole might have made plans to like combine their farms, and like there was some hints throughout, like she was really good at the olive oil piece and he was in farming piece, and he was really good at the business piece, the management of it and all that kind of stuff. Hints that they should combine their farms, and they might even have discussed it, like before they kissed, after they kissed, I don't know, at some point in that all. By then I was just like, these two friends should not be kissing. That's too weird. So I kind of missed that piece of it. I zoned out a bit there. So they might have become bonding their farms, but I guess we'll never know. Well, you'll know if you watch the movie. Like, maybe I'll watch it again. At least the last 5 minutes or something. Who knows? The other secondary set of characters that we have to talk about is Nicole's best friend, Adam. So Nicole and Adam works for the farm too. The two of them are super tight. They do all their work together and everything. And then right at the very beginning, I don't know if it was her mom. It was her mom. Nicole's mom's like, I don't understand why you and Adam are not a couple. And Nicole's like, oh, trust me, I'm not his type. And I'm like, whoa, that's confident. No one's that confident about being not someone's type. I mean, sure, when we say we have a type, it's just sort of general people we tend, that sort of characterizations of people that we date, but it's not set in stone. It's not like if he's not blonde, he won't date her. I was like, the way she said it in the delivery, and it was so confident. I'm like, is Adam gay? Because she would definitely not be his type. But I'm like, the only way you could be that confident is if Adam's gay. I'm like, but no. This is a Hallmark movie. They don't have gay characters in Hallmark. They don't have any sort of diversity at all in Hallmark movies. I'm like, no, he can't be gay. It's a Hallmark movie. Put that out of your mind. I actually have my notes. I just have Adam, gay, ? Right from that very first, it was like the second scene of the movie. But I'm like, no. We hadn't even met him at that point. We do, and then we meet him, and they're close. Her and Adam are like great friends. He's very supportive of her. They're a great relationship. You think nothing of it. And then later in the movie, they're all, at the diner again. We meet, so we're right on early on during the whole meet cute. We'd met Billy, the guy who owns and / works at the diner. Several times they're in the diner in the evenings for drinks. So we catch Adam and Nicole playing darts one night when Billy announces the apple picking contest. So everyone signs up, and we see some interaction between Billy and Adam. And I didn't really notice it at first, but Adam had made some comment about the prize for the apple picking contest would be a meal for two at the diner, and he's like, ooh, does that come with a bottle of wine? And Billy's like, maybe I can arrange for that. And then later there was some more conversation. We see again something's going on with Nicole and Jake, and they leave, and you just see Billy and Adam exchange glances, and I was like, hold on, these gazes / glances, these are lingering. And the way they talk to each other is a little flirtatious. I was like, hold on, is Adam and Billy, is something happening? And then of course later on when we have Billy's like, hey, are you going to the big dance tonight? And Adam's like, yeah, I'll be there. Billy's like, great. I'm like, mm-hmm. And sure enough, next scene, we see this beautiful romantic hayride. It's nighttime. Over the cart or whatever, they've got twinkle lights. It's very romantic. We know it's romantic because they immediately make Nicole and Jake take one. But when we first go in scene, there's Billy and Adam sitting next to each other on this hayride. And I'm like, oh, is this a date? And then later on, when Nicole's looking for Jake, after finding out that he submitted the paperwork, she runs in the diner, and Adam and Billy are sitting there having a meal. They've got wine. She runs in. She's like, have you seen Jake? And they're like, no, she left. And so she leaves, and I'm like, oh, that was a date. There was wine, there was a meal, that was definitely a date. So there was definitely a gay romance happening secondary to the whole main romance, and it was so subtly done. I don't know who this director is, but they're like, I think we're going to try to introduce a little gay romance into this Hallmark movie, and they put it right under the radar. It was so subtle, and honestly, if it hadn't been for that very first line, when Nicole's like, "Oh, I'm not his type," I would never, not even for a second, I would never have even noticed. It was only because of that not his type bit that I was paying attention for it, and I think, oh yeah, there was definitely a couple of romantic dates there for Adam and Billy, uh, which was great. Let's get these Hallmark movies a little more interesting, a little more diverse, because we all know what happened last year. What was that when they put out that? There was that ad where I never even saw that, but there was a same-sex couple getting married, and some group complained, and Hallmark pulled it, and then everyone else complained for pulling it, so then they put it back up. It all happened like in the course of 48 hours, and I only found out about like a week later. I'm like, whoa, what happened? Controversy, Hallmark Channel, what? So if they keep having directors sneaking in these sort of gay romances or these LGBTQ characters, but keep it really low key, like it's not even barely even happening, and then suddenly it'll just sort of take over, and we'll get start to see it more variety in our Hallmark Channel movies. That's how I know one day I was actually watching a movie, and this was back at Christmas time, so it was a Christmas movie, and there was a gay mixed race couple, and I was like, this is Hallmark? And then checked the channel and it was Lifetime. I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's why. I'm not on Hallmark Channel. It's still a cheesy Christmas romance movie, but I knew immediately that I was like, not on Hallmark. Too much diversity happening. Too many unique, interesting. They also, oh man, because they had so many different races and body types, and it was obviously in relationships. It was a mixed bag. It was a normal looking community, which is why I was like, whoa, Hallmark. Oh wait, Lifetime. Yep, okay, that tracks. That's the end of the review. Love Under the Olive Tree. Was it the best Hallmark Channel movie I've seen? No. Was it okay? Yeah. Probably would have been a very low ranking movie, except for The Grandfathers, Adam and Billy. I'm like, here for that. Here for these secondary stories, plot lines happening that were way better, way more interesting than the two main characters. So if you have a chance to watch it, I would recommend it. Just honestly, for Adam and Billy. Watch it for Adam and Billy.